Hey, fifth grade, for today's poetry lesson, we're going to be reading the poem To an Athlete Dying Young by A.E. Housman. A.E. Housman was an English writer and scholar whose most famous book was A Shropshire Lad. This is a collection of poems that are set in the British countryside and tell stories about the local people, often in the voice of one of them, a farm boy or a soldier. The language is 19th century, so this poem is going to be a little more difficult than what we're used to, but it's worth it. This is one of Housman's saddest and most famous poems. Here, a local man tells us about the fastest runner in his town, the young champion in the county competition who won for them the long distance race and the Challenge Cup, and who is suddenly, inexplicably dead. Before reading the poem, be sure to look over the attached vocabulary. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up right now and go over this with you. Chaired. Chaired is a word that means placed or seated in a chair and carried aloft by others in celebration, versus later when the runner is carried aloft shoulder high in a coffin. So you've probably seen this in movies before, but this guy wins the race. They put him in a chair and they carry him around because he's the hero. Betimes just means early. So it's kind of like before times, which means early. Laurel is the foliage of the laurel tree, an emblem of athletic victory. So they would make these little laurel wreaths and they would wear that instead of wearing a medal or having a trophy. It's symbolic. Route, I'm really not even sure how you say that. A group of defeated people. So the losers, basically. Renown is a fancy word for fame. Sill of shade means the doorstep or the abode of the dead, or like a grave. Low lintel means the top of the entrance of the grave. Still defended, the championship hasn't yet been challenged in another race. Garland is the crown of laurel, so we talked about that earlier. This would be what they wore if they won the race. Briefer means worn for a short time. Girl basically means child in Middle English. It doesn't necessarily mean a female. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and read the poem. Follow along with me on your copy if you want, or you can just follow along on the screen. To an athlete dying young. The time you won your town the race, we chaired you through the marketplace. Men and boys stood cheering by, and home we brought you shoulder high. Today the road all runners come, shoulder high we bring you home, and set you at your threshold down, townsman of a stiller town. Smart lad to slip betimes away from fields where glory does not stay. And early though the laurel grows, it withers quicker than the rose. Eyes the shady night has shut, cannot see the record cut, and silence sounds no worse than cheers after earth has stopped the ears. Now you will not swell the rout of lads that wore their honors out, runners whom renown outran, and the name died before the man. So set before its echoes fade, the fleet foot on the sill of shade, and hold the low lintel up, the still defended challenge cup, and round that early laureled head will flock to gaze the strengthless dead, and find unwithered on its curls the garland briefer than a girl's. So what I'm asking you to do today when you go into this poem is to mark the lines and words that you want to talk about because they confuse you and you want to understand them. Now, normally we would have a discussion and we would explain what these things mean, but because we have a lot of kids out for quarantine or sickness, we're going to do this poem in kind of a two-step process. Normally, we do not do poetry on Wednesdays, but I think I'm going to add a quick video on Wednesday that will allow you guys to hear some of the answers to your questions. So today, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back in and mark the lines and words that are confusing to you. And then I just want you to add a comment. So you guys know how to do that. You select the line and then you use the comment button and tell me what is confusing, or, put a question mark. I don't know what this means. What are they trying to say here? Add those questions to your comments. Then I want you to share it with a classmate. And hopefully you and the classmate may have similar ideas, or there may be even things that they understand about the poem that you didn't, or you may understand things that they didn't. Have them reply to your comment, and then I will give you a video tomorrow addressing some of those questions. I'll see if I can answer some of those questions for you. So, and if I don't get it posted tomorrow, I will post it at a later date, because it is kind of crazy this week. I will post it at a later date so that you can go back in and watch it and get answers to your questions. Something to think about as you're writing your own free verse poems. In Elegy for a Diver, which we're actually going to read on Thursday, Peter Menke spoke to an old athlete whose body had outlived his athletic skill. Hausman spoke to a young athlete who died in his prime. Both poets show us that there's more to sports than wins and losses, that there are ideas and dreams and ironies to consider too. So these are things that you can explore in your writing also. Love you guys, and I miss you, and let me know if I can help you in any way.